Hi friends, welcome back to Building in a Small Town. My guest today is Hanna Nuss of Denver, Iowa. Hanna is the founder of Local, which I would call a movement more so than just a business. She's a dedicated author, speaker, and social entrepreneur. Starting her journey with a personal journal podcast, she transformed her passion for storytelling into 2 impactful books and a mission to uplift and empower small towns. Hanna and I probably could have gone on for a few more hours, and I definitely see recording more episodes in our future. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think you will too. Before we get into the episode, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for listening and ask you to make sure that you're subscribed on whatever your listening platform. I recently heard a wild statistic that over 50% of podcast listeners start listening to a new podcast after being recommended by a friend. On that note, could you share the show with someone that might enjoy it? It's a simple, free way to help support the show. Thanks, and let's get into it. Welcome to Building in a Small Town, where we're talking to entrepreneurs, community leaders, policymakers, and more to find out how they're building things in small towns. I'm your host, Shelby Smith. All right, hello and welcome back to the Building in a Small Town podcast. Today I am joined by not a local to here in Collins, but a local to Denver, Iowa, up in Northeast Iowa, Hanna Nuss of Local. I feel like I'm going to say local a lot today.
Yeah, it'll get said. And it's meant to. I mean,
it's a theme.
Yes, it is a theme. It's kind of part of the movement. So,
yes. Well, thank you so much for making the drive down here and sitting down to chat with me.
Yeah, it's a lovely drive. It gets very curvy these last 10, 15 minutes.
Yes.
Very curvy.
Well, so I would say Collins is on the edge of really flat Iowa. Like northwest Iowa down to about here tends to be really flat. Like where you're from up in northeast Iowa, you get nice rolling hills in some spots.
Yeah.
You know, nice rolling hills. You go not very far and you're in the driftless area kind of deal. Where my husband's from up in northwest Iowa is flat as a pancake, like not even trees kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And here's sort of the tail end of it. If you keep going south, you start to get into the really pretty rolling hills again. So
yeah.
Collins,
just making your way there.
Yes, and Collins, the thing that it says on the bottom of one of our signs, maybe both of them, is a short country drive to anywhere.
Oh, that is lovely.
So that's what you experienced the last 15 minutes, was a short country drive.
I really did. I did. I do like how small towns have something different on all of their signs, or like ours do.
What's on Denver's? Do you know?
The cleanest little city would have been when it was first Jefferson City, then became Denver, Iowa. But when it was Jefferson City and a little part of the Denver, Iowa portion, it was the cleanest little city in Iowa. Not sure why or how you can make that claim. Yeah. I don't know how you get...
I feel like nobody's checking that to be like...
There's no metric. So we were just that. And now some genius marketing person came up with, we're the mile wide city instead of the mile high city. So that's kind of been a fun thing to play with. And that probably is the main thing on our signs, or we're trying to make that the main thing on our signs. So.
In that case, then you can only expand in one direction, so you got to maintain that.
Yeah, we got to stay a mile. And we will. We are pretty much landlocked, so we'll be a mile wide. That's it. The only place to go from here is up, but we will never be a mile high. So
that's all right. Can't have it all.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you originally from Denver?
Dysart, Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah, so a little bit smaller. Not much, but basically the same type of rural community, northeast Iowa type area. So
my dad's originally from Sumner, so not super far from...
So is my husband.
Really?
I'm sure they know each other.
Yeah. I'll just have to ask him if it's a Nuss. So do you know Robin Bostrom with, yeah, so I had her on, she was my last week's episode, and so she's from Hawkeye, which is like right next to Sumner.
Yeah.
And my parents just came to see my shop yesterday, and I was saying, I had Robin Bostrom on. He's like, oh, Bostrom's in West Union. Like, I know exactly where that is. And I'm like, such a small Northeast Iowa world.
Yes. Yeah. Well, all of Iowa, but specifically Northeast Iowa.
Yes.
Like Sumner, West Union
It's
area.
all a cluster.
It is. It really is. Yeah, because my husband's from there, and it was a culture shock to me because I have never had a name like that, where I would come home to Sumner. We'd come home from college and they'd be like, oh yeah, you're Hanna. I know you. I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't though. Like, oh yeah, you're Jordan so-and-so. Like, okay. So I just had to get used to people knowing me because of my last name, even though it wasn't my last name
Right.
for very long.
So imagine then Brock Purdy going up there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That had to, yeah. So anyways, my dad's one of 10. So like there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so yeah. Anyways, like I said, Northeast Iowa, super small world.
Yes.
Okay. So you grew up in Dysart. You played sports growing up. Mm-hmm. What did you play?
Pretty much everything. I think that's one of my favorite parts about the small town experience is the ability to. Yeah, you have to.
Yes.
If you're an athlete, you have to contribute. Period. That's your job as an athlete in a small town. But also just being able to, you really can balance out a lot of different activities, and coaches are usually, well, they all probably hang out, so they know how integral you are to each team. So tennis, soccer, basketball, volleyball, pretty much everything that I could get my hands on is what I did.
Yeah. I would say typical small town. How many were in your graduating class?
So I think 80-ish.
So that's pretty decent size then.
Yeah.
As my husband was a graduating class of 19.
Yeah.
So that's teeny tiny.
Yep, that's small.
Yes.
That's smaller than us. Yep.
80 seems like a good number. You know everybody, but like if you don't like somebody, you can get away from them kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas 19, like you can't be mean to anyone.
Right. You got to be friends with everyone.
You're forced.
Yes.
So, and do with that what you will. Okay. And then did you end up going to college post high school?
Yep. So went to college, continued playing volleyball. So volleyball was actually was the sport that I played least out of everything, but I just really liked it. I had my 8th grade volleyball coach just was like, you need to play volleyball. I don't know what to tell you. I was like, no, I'm basketball. I play basketball. You're confused. He's like, I don't care what I have to do. You got to do this. You have to play. And so they ended up covering all of my club costs so that I would just start playing volleyball. And yeah, I think I was starting as a freshman. I had started the year before, was the first time I picked up a ball, and went on to play 4 years of college and then coached some college after that and coached high school after that. So he was right. He knew.
Sometimes they are.
Yeah.
So where did you go to college?
So I played 2 years at Kirkwood Community College and then went on to Ashford, which is a school, but it has since closed. It's over by Clinton, or it's in Clinton, Iowa.
Okay.
But in that area. But it's closed. So now I kind of feel weird about that history because I'm like, does that count then?
Is I said was, I guess, past tense now. Was that D2, D3?
D2.
Okay.
D2, yes. If I remember right. Anyways.
It's fine. It's closed. Doesn't matter now.
Yes. You know what? It was D1, everybody. You can't look it up.
Yep. No longer exists.
We were the St. Bernards, so it was
Were
real
you
cool.
really?
Yes. I like when there are different mascots. Like, can we try a little harder?
Yes.
Do we all have to be the same thing?
Hilarious. So, one of the schools that I was considering, so I played basketball in college. One of the schools I was considering, it was in my top 3, I took an official, was UC Irvine, and they were the Anteaters.
See?
Yeah.
That's great.
No.
That's a terrible mascot, but at least they tried something different.
They did.
You
And
know?
there's also, I think it's UC Santa Clara are the banana slugs. So, yeah, I'm with you on like the unique thing.
Yeah.
But I kind of draw the line at anteaters and banana slugs,
Right.
personally.
Oh, that's probably not.
St. Bernards I can get behind though. Like they're very lovable.
Yeah.
Did you guys have like a school mascot that was an actual St. Bernard?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Great.
I don't know whose it was,
It
but
would-
it did make an appearance at things.
I was going to say, I feel like that's a missed opportunity if they didn't
They
do
did.
that one.
We had like a actual mascot, and then they had an actual dog.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you finish up at Ashford. Then do you jump straight into coaching?
Yep. I coached another year on staff there because I was like, what am I going to do without this thing? I don't know. I have to go to real life now. So I stayed on, coached a year, graduated, and then we decided that we'd move back home to the Cedar Valley. And then I didn't coach. Actually, no. I tried moving back, and I'm like, I'm just not going to do anything with volleyball. It's fine. It's fine. And then someone stalked me down, and they're like, no, can you coach for our club? So started helping with club, and then kind of got a couple of waterfall happenings that then led me to become the head coach of the Columbus Catholic volleyball team. So, yeah. But I had kind of expected to get into coaching. Eventually, I wanted to be a head coach, and then, I don't know, then at the ripe old age of 24, all of a sudden I was a head coach. I figured I'd wait my whole life to get that opportunity, so
Yeah.
just kind of all happened.
What year was this?
So that would have been 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was Columbus any good?
So traditionally, when I was in school, they were amazing. They made state every year. They had
Yeah.
never won state, but they always made it. And by the time I had gotten there, they had talent. They just never really capitalized on it. So like, I just laugh when I think about how bold I was, because I was sitting in those interviews and I'm like, I'm going to return the tradition of excellence to this program. Like, how am I going to do that? I've never done this before. I don't know, but I'm just like, yeah, I'm 24. I've never been a head coach, and I'm going to return.
I'm doing this.
I'm going to return the tradition of excellence. Just trust me. And they hadn't made it anywhere close in a while. So that was a wild prediction. But I did, and it happened so much faster than I guess I had prepared for. So yeah, my first year, we actually made it to state, which I figured I'd coach my whole life and never make a state tournament. And then our second year, we played for a state title, and the third year, we won the 3A state title.
So then you weren't wrong.
I was not wrong. We did it. I just, like, what a bold thing to predict and guarantee, like, this is what I'm going to do with your program. So then I stayed on coaching another year, and then my kids were getting older. I mean, I had a baby in the 4 years that I was coaching. So I had a brand new baby, like pumping in the side hallways of gymnasiums, because there's nowhere to pump during a tournament on Saturday. And I don't know how I got through all of that, doing that, but made it. And then I was like, you know what, my kids are getting older, and I am parenting these kids instead of parenting my own. So it just was time to go. So after 4 years of coaching, I exited to figure out what I was going to do without volleyball now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of felt like, okay, you did what you wanted to do. You made a name for yourself. I think we're good now. We're good.
Yeah.
So yeah, then that chapter kind of closed.
And so going back to college, what did you study in college?
I got a graphic design degree from Kirkwood, and then I wasn't great at that. I enjoyed it, but didn't love it. And so my graphic design teacher was like, you're really good at talking about design, so you should probably go into PR. So I ended up with a degree in public relations marketing. And then I went back and got my master's for healthcare administration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
And you and your husband, you met in college?
We
Before
both
college?
played. So he played baseball at Kirkwood. I played volleyball at Kirkwood. We did not meet there, though we went to the same parties. We hung out with the same people. Would have crossed paths in the training room a million times. Never met there. He was looking for another girl that I was friends with, and he had Facebook messaged me, and I was like, I don't know where she is, but we could go to a movie. I just shoot my shot.
I say you gotta shoot your shot, man.
Yeah. So we went to a movie, and then everything's just history after that.
Hilarious.
But I was like, you shouldn't be looking for her.
Yeah, I'm right here. Duh. I'm right here. That's funny. Okay, so was your husband into coaching as well? Like, did he have that?
He hasn't coached. He comes from a family that was like born and bred in baseball. So, I think they've always just been around it, but he's always had younger siblings because he's from a family of 7.
Yeah.
So I think he's always coached them.
Something in the water in Sumner. Big families, man.
There's a lot of people from big families. So he was always just coaching little brothers, I feel like.
Yeah. So nothing formal necessarily.
No, but he wouldn't have had the opportunity because I was doing it. So he was doing the heavy lifting for parenting. Because, when I was head coach, you also ran all of your youth programs. So that was year-round job.
Yes. Okay. So were you guys living in Waterloo at the time?
Yeah. I think Waterloo, we had moved to Denver kind of shortly after me taking the Columbus job. But the hospital that I worked at was right next to Columbus. So it was perfect.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I graduated from Waterloo West. So
so you know things.
I know a few things. I only went there for a year and a half. It's a long story. But yeah, so that's why I was curious if Columbus was any good at. They were not very good at basketball, at least in my time. But that would have been. I graduated in 2009, so.
Oh yeah, so that's right around my years. Yeah.
Yeah, they were not good at basketball then.
It's funny back in our day. Which now is back in the day.
I know.
It's fine. We're coping.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like you'd be like now teams, they're good at everything. If they're good and they have athletes, they're good at everything. But back in the day, you were just good at basketball or you were just good at volleyball.
Yes.
Like you weren't good at all the things. I don't know how they do that now.
Yeah, well, cool. It's just maybe better. I don't know. Maybe better athletes. Maybe they're starting. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So my husband played football at Warburg, and then he loves the coaching thing too. So that's what he got a teaching degree. So he was a PE teacher and then coached football for however many years. 6 years he made it in that, and then walked away.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
Yeah,
it's not a long term.
No,
thing.
Well, and I don't know what your experience was, but like. He got to the point where like the parents, just the kids' attitudes in general, like it just got tough. It was just different.
Yeah. I think, it's unless you are slated, and I feel like I mentor a lot of coaches now, whether that's good or bad. But I just feel like it's part of working with a massive amount of athletes at one time. And you almost can't stay for very long if you want to stay sane because you're dealing with, and now I think is totally different. And I sympathize for coaches everywhere because, back in our day, which is back in the day, and I'm going to just keep saying that, you'd get angry about something or something would happen. You'd go through your whole school day. You'd go through a practice. You'd come home and then you might remember to tell your parents about it. Like now something can happen in real time and a kid can call their parent crying and the situation can escalate so quickly.
Yes.
But we have to remember like these are still 14, 15-year-old kids who are just reacting in that moment. And then I think as parents, we're reacting in that moment because no one blames you. Like Mama Bear, for sure. We're going to do that. But just like, if we can all just take a breath and remember, like we can't let 15, 14-year-olds lead how we're going to navigate this situation. So it's just nice that there used to be a buffer. There is no buffer anymore. It's all happening real time. And I think just so much could be avoided by, I used to just take away cell phones. Because for goodness sakes, like you just need to have time. You need to have a buffer between the world and you and this athletic endeavor you're about to go on. Like just let go of the contact. It's okay.
Right. Well, and back in our day, the most you would have online was like Iowa preps. Like
Right.
you might pop up on an Iowa preps forum.
Might, if you're like
Yes.
really killing it.
Yes.
And then
know.
you're like, everybody's sending you the article.
Right. But
Paper article.
Right.
Not even online.
correct. But so now, like, it's social media, social media is in your face. It never goes away.
And the stats.
Yes.
The stats are just crazy. That was probably one of the hardest parts, was like people being so hell-bent on the stats being right on that. Luckily, I didn't have to do that as the head coach, but I had to like listen to the parent. Oh, we're off a kill. I don't.
Yes,
it's like,
because your bench is doing it for you,
right.
but there's also 4 parents up in the stands that are like,
and now they can check them.
yes,
So it's crazy. It's crazier than it used to be.
yes. Like I said, I'm happy that my husband chose different path, because I know he loves it, and I think that in some capacity he'd probably like to be involved in some way, but I don't know.
I think there are ways to do it. It's just you have to find the right program, the right mentality, and someone that's really forcing and stressing that, and that is rare. It is very rare, and it's hard when there's just so much opportunity that everyone thinks that they're better than everyone, and like really the goal is just to have kids play, learn the values that come along with play, and like excel at that. But now it's just who has more rings or medals, or I'm like, I know what I did with my medals. They're all just in a weird like bin in my garage because I feel weird throwing them away. But like, what?
What are you supposed to do with them?
What are you supposed to do with them?
Right. Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys moved to Denver. You end up leaving coaching. You're working in healthcare. At that point, then you walk away from coaching. And then what?
Then to just put a bow on it, like just start spiraling. So I kind of lost everywhere that I ever got to be expansive. And while it felt better to not have to wear a different hat all the time and to not be running, I mean, gosh, for half of the year, I would wake my kids up. So they're 4 and 2 at that point. We'd wake up at 5 a.m., drive in, watch weightlifting, drive back to Denver. So that's about a half hour, an hour in the car, get them to daycare and school. Then I'd come back, go to work for the full day. Then I'd come to practice and then be home. And it was just, I was like so tired of doing all that. So it felt better to not be in that. But then it also felt like, I'm not me. Like I don't have any outlet for the competitive and driven individual that I used to be. Like now I'm just working. And so I was trying to find something that would drive me forward in my work and get excited. And, it was fun. So I was a business strategist for the whole health system, Waterloo, Cedar Falls. And I got to work with different clinics and help them turn their business around. But man, I was just like slowly dying inside. Like, what if I don't find anything that's going to re-wake me up like that did? I just gave all that up and I had been so successful at it. Like, and people were saying that, what are you doing? Why? I mean, to go from 3A coach of the year to like, all right, I'm good, I'm going to go, just seems crazy. But I needed to figure out who I was without that. And then probably a year later, I was like, why are we figuring this out? Why would you do this? So I was just working as a business strategist in a pretty big health system. It was fine. And then I just started having that conversation. Is fine going to be good enough for the rest of your life? Are you okay with it's fine? And for a little bit, I was like, yeah, you're just supposed to save for retirement and raise your kids. And I can get into that. That sounds great. And I tried. I really did. I met with a wealth advisor and I'm like, he's showing me all the things. This is what your money's going to do. Look at this. This is exciting. And I'm like, it just isn't though. I'm not excited about this. But I tried. I was like, he's a coach. That'll be great. it'll be great. And no, nothing was waking me up. Nothing was exciting about the life that I was living. So I just was slowly bored. And it was all just fine. So I can't stress that enough. It was all fine. I would have been fine. There really was no reason to disrupt my life. It all would have been fine. We would have saved perfectly for retirement. We would have had amazing kids who accomplished a lot. It would have been amazing. But that just wasn't an amazing path for me. So yeah, shortly after leaving coaching, I start my podcast. It's just a personal journal podcast to start recording my thoughts on any given thing, on this whole journey that I was about to embark on. And probably a year after that, I leave healthcare. So that was 2020, which it was a pandemic. So it was an easy decision.
It was like good timing.
Yeah,
honestly.
It was like, you know what? The whole world's going crazy. I might as well join them. So I leave because I want to write books and I enjoy doing my show and I enjoy the energy that I'm getting from that. And I'm going to explore entrepreneurship because that seems exciting. So, yeah.
And growing up, like, had you been around any entrepreneurs? Like, were your parents small business owner?
No. I grew up in Dysart, Iowa. So really the expectation was like you were going to be a teacher or a bank teller, or like those were the paths. And we didn't grow up around anybody that owned businesses.
You didn't grow up on a farm?
Nope, didn't grow up on a farm, just like in rural America, right smack dab in the middle of it. Just kind of rode my bike around to the pool every summer and hung out. I mean, the typical rural kid experience is what I had. And I didn't know anybody. We were like a little below middle class, just kind of barely balancing there. And I didn't know anyone. I loved writing. I have just like mounds and mounds of books that I wrote, probably first grade through fourth grade. And then somewhere in there, I think I realized that who do you know that writes books? That's a crazy thing. You can't just do that. So I gave it up. 'Cause I think if you don't have an example, and how are you going to, in a town that had, we had 1,200 people. There was probably 3 businesses that I can remember. A big main street, but no businesses on them. So yeah, there was no one to look up to in that space. And I don't know, I just didn't have any examples of that. So it didn't seem like an option.
Yeah.
Corporate seemed like an option. Safety seemed like an option.
Safety, security.
Yep.
Yes. But then you decide, nope, I'm going to give this entrepreneurship thing a go.
Yeah. Yeah. I did. And, I will say, I don't recommend just exiting the way that I did. I do recommend actually having a business. I do recommend having just written words prior to leaving to writing a book. But for me, I was just slowly struggling. Also, my husband was very much on board with like, I can tell that you are not the person that you have been in life. So whatever you got to do to figure that out, like we're going to do that. So we had planned at the beginning of 2020, okay, we'll just start saving. So all of your paycheck is just going to go into savings. We already knew where we were at financially if we were going to make the move. Most of what I was making was going towards daycare and into the beautiful retirement account that was supposed to excite me for the rest of my life. So we had kind of put ourselves in the right position to make the move. But in January, we just decided we would just start stockpiling that and living off of just his salary to show ourselves that we could do it. So we were fine. By June, we were fine to make the exit. And then I had to figure out how to build a business, which is not a great position to put yourself in. It seems like a great idea because you got to make money. But there's so much deep exploration that I think has to come before really being in a good place to start a business that's authentic and true to who you are. I started a lot of things, but they were just kind of like, oh yeah, I could do that. And I think entrepreneurs are amazing because they can do so many things, but I wanted something that was going to allow me to just wear the same hat all day long. Like, I just want to be this one person if I'm going to pick. And so, yeah, started and stopped a lot of businesses along the probably 3-year path before we got to local.
Like what? Like what did you start when you were like,
Okay, I was really excited because I'm like, well, I have a podcast, so I should be coaching or something. That's what a lot of people do. So I had gone through minimalism. I like really was trying on anything that was self-helpy to really like fix my life because it was just in tatters at that point. So I taught a class on minimalism for a little bit. That one was okay. It was a good class. I think I had some good ideas. Great, but just kind of, okay. I don't think I could be Marie Tato and do this forever. I don't think I can minimalize people's closets. That doesn't excite me. So kind of left that one. And I'm like, maybe I just need to do dream coaching. Like I enjoy helping people with their dreams. I liked that. But it always felt like they were getting to building a business and doing all of that. And I'm like, I don't know. It was so big. Dreams, helping people with their dreams is like just a big chunk to chew off. So much that you need to know. So kind of did that, kind of didn't, kept podcasting the whole time. Cause I thought eventually, like if I'm ever standing on a stage somewhere, I won't just be giving you the cliff notes. Like if you really want to go through the tears of everything that happened, you can listen to every single day of the madness that
6
was,
years.
yeah,
6 years worth.
changing your life. I mean, if you recorded every day of a journey that big, it would be pretty wild. So, did that. Then I got really excited about, I was helping with entrepreneurship in the Cedar Valley. So I was doing like 1 million cups and just a bunch of little entrepreneur meetup type of things that were already going. I was volunteering for those. So then
you have to know, Nathan is his, no, the guy at UNI who used to be one of the organizers at 1 million cups. I can't think what his name is.
Patrick.
Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
That's his name.
Yeah.
I used to be an organizer for the Ames 1 million cups.
Oh, okay.
Back in the day. So that's why I was like, there was the UNI guy. But the Cedar Valley one only meets once a month. Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to say. I'm pretty sure it was not as frequent as some of the others.
Yeah. So there just wasn't as much of a need, or I don't think.
Well, it just ends up being a lot of stress on the organizers to try and get,
I think if you don't have a good ecosystem already built that's feeding into that, and that was our biggest issue, was like, we don't have any activity really around this.
Right.
So it became near impossible to find speakers, because if you don't have something that you're offering them, why would business owners come?
Well, yes, there's that. Yeah, there's that, I suppose. And that's where I think the Iowa State Entrepreneurship Program has a really good ecosystem. Mm-hmm. They've worked very hard to build it. And so I think the Ames chapter definitely benefits from that. The other thing is, like, is the Cedar Valley, like, Chamber of Commerce involved at all? Or are they?
Yeah, so they have Grow Cedar Valley, which would kind of act as that, but they weren't real involved.
See, and that's where, like, again, Ames is really lucky because Ames Chamber, like, hosts it. They're very involved.
So to have paid people that are kind of not necessarily driving it because your volunteers are,
but at least even organize,
right.
It just, it's very helpful. So anyway, sorry, continue.
No, that's a good place to go, because I think ecosystem is where we end up anyways. But so I just kind of drilled around there. Then I get real excited about ancestry. Oh, yeah. Right? I mean, if you're going on an exploration of your life,
who am I really?
First you go minimalism, then you go coaching,
and then you go family trauma.
Yeah, like it would naturally lead you to ancestry, of course. It wouldn't. It's not a normal path.
No, it's fine.
So then I'm like, I'm gonna create this like cloud ancestry type of thing, essentially like Google storage. But like all good entrepreneurs, I'm like, this has never existed before.
Yes, of course not.
This is nowhere that anyone could ever imagine. This is the greatest thing ever. So that led me to our local chamber in Denver, they had some sort of tax thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. I have never participated in the Denver of this. But at that point, I was probably at like 2.5 years. My husband's kind of going, okay, like, I support you. I love you. I love you so much. But like at some point, we got to pick something. You got to do something. You said you want to write books. Are we writing books? And I'm like, I was kind of trying to do the cool version of what I thought a writer entrepreneur would be. So I would say that was the 3 years. Like, what's a cool idea? What's going to get me in jeans and a t-shirt with my logo on it somewhere? Like leading these entrepreneur things. That's what I'm going for. And so eventually he's like, okay, I don't care what you, if you want to continue on this, like fine, but you probably need to stop driving a half hour to all this stuff and volunteering all of your time away if you really want to build a business. So I'm like, fine. So I go to the Denver chamber. I'm like, okay, this is right in town. I'm like, ride my bike. Are we good with that? I can volunteer and do that. So I start helping them and building what was it? Okay. Building the ancestry. And I can't even remember what it was called, but it was going to be great.
It was that impactful.
Yes, it was going to be amazing. God, Restory? I think it was a bad name because I don't even remember exactly what it was. But I take that through Empower Iowa, through like an incubator, kind of get that sort of built. And then I go through another incubator through Cornell for women's entrepreneurship. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like the best entrepreneur ever. I'm going to all of these classes. I'm really killing this. But I hadn't sold anything yet.
It's fine. Revenue comes later.
It's not great. Yeah, and that's what I kept telling myself. Like, hey, Jeff Bezos he was negative for his whole life. Don't even worry about it. And I'm like, that's such great advice because I'm really doing it. I'm doing it then. Yay. Just like Jeff. So I get it through those 2 incubators, and then I'm like, yeah, oh, this sucks. I don't like it. I don't like it anymore. I don't care about ancestry. Actually, they had recommended start putting yourself in groups with people who care about this. So I'm like, okay, be a good entrepreneur, start going to ancestry events. And then I'm there, and I love these people, and I love people that are passionate about what they're passionate about. Great. But I'm like, these are not my people.
I guess I don't really care.
This is so far from the people that I imagine myself being surrounded by. Like, that's not my thing. I care. Like, maybe I cared for that moment, like minimalism, but I don't care like these people care. And I feel like if I'm going to be building a company, I should probably care to that level. And I can't. I couldn't like go through library stacks of ancestry trees and no, like genealogy. I start following people on Instagram, genealogy, all the things. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm bored. This is boring. What? Quit posting pictures of family trees on Instagram. This is boring. No one cares, but people do care.
Right.
That care about that. I just didn't. So I sort of dive back into the entrepreneurial world, but I start helping more statewide with like through Des Moines with tech startup stuff. I'm like, okay, maybe just helping will be my thing. I don't know. So I start helping with that. I end up facilitating a startup weekend or something through Des Moines, and I don't even know who runs the actual program. But
was it like Techstars or was
yes,
it?
It was Techstars. Yeah. So it was a Techstars weekend. I'm really excited. I'm like, okay, maybe this will be my thing. I'm excited. And then I end up pitching an idea, which is certainly not what I was supposed to do, but I had never done it before. So I'm like, I thought we were just throwing out ideas. And so we were throwing out ideas, but I don't think I was supposed to throw out an idea, but one of my ideas got picked. And that ended up being, like a app that was going to help business owners find rural communities, like find spaces in rural communities. I'm like, that makes sense. And I come from a small town. That kind of makes sense. This all makes sense. I think this makes perfect sense. So that one was called Rurally. And I ended up getting second place in the pitch competition. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. certainly all of the facilitators were like, this lady is an idiot. Like, she was not supposed to be pitched. She's on the facilitators. Whatever. It happened. So get second place, feeling good. You get all these prizes for all these business things, and all these people are reaching out because you kind of build a team to essentially bring your idea to life. So the coder is reaching out. All these tech people are like, oh, this is a great idea. Can't wait to start working with you. I'm up here in Waukee and da, 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 da. And then kind of similar to the ancestry thing, I'm like, I don't want to talk to coders all day. Like, and then I'm realizing this would never help a small town. This would never help a small town. It couldn't. There's so much more that would have to go into this. So then I'm like, but what more? And what would be the solution? If there was a solution, what would it look like? So still volunteering with our chamber, and then I just leaning into this, like, but how do you fix the problems that rural Iowa is facing? How do you actually fix that? Because an app is not going to do it. Plus, no one could say rurally, right? They would like stumble. Rurally? Rural is already such a hard word. So I'm like, well, that name's not going to work anyways, so it's fine. But it's the right step. So then I enter another incubator because I'm like, maybe I start a gift shop. Something wanted to get me out of my home office where I was just working all by myself and kind of going stir crazy. So something in me just felt this need to connect to community. I just didn't feel connected to anyone anymore. So I'm like, okay, I'll start a gift shop. So I'm thinking about this. I'm taking it through an incubator. I probably get 3 weeks into the incubator and I'm like, I'm going to start this freaking gift shop. But I still have the same problem, which Rurally started to fix. It's like, how do you find a space? Like, there's nothing in our town, nothing in these buildings, nothing going on here, but no for rent signs. Who owns this building? No one knows. It's just this like question mark of hopefully you know the right person. So instead of just waiting to find out who owned what, I call up the president of our chamber and I'm like, this should really be our job. We should know what's available to rent in case someone wants to start a business here. Well, who would want to start a business here? I'm like, me. I do. I want a gift shop. I'm going to open a gift shop. Okay, are you sure that this town is the right place for that? Like, we live really close to Cedar Falls, so Cedar Falls probably has one of the best main streets in Iowa. I mean, it's just adorable.
It's beautiful.
It's just a picture book.
Yeah,
it's so
cute.
So certainly that's the best place that you could be. But I was like, no, I want to be in Denver. He's like, I don't even know. I don't even know who owns the building. I don't know. And I'm like, hey, we need to figure this out. Like, part of what we do has to know these things. We have to know what's available in case someone would want to start something. So he's like, okay, just quit yelling at me. I will see what I can figure out. So he
go on the county assessor.
Yeah.
We'll look it up.
He doesn't figure it out, but
Did he at least try?
I don't know. Okay, the jury's still out on that. Within 5 minutes, the vice president had called him because he had just talked to the photographer in town who had just handed, it all happened in a 5-minute time frame, which is wild. She had just been handed like the papers for this business that had been in there for 50 years that they were going to do something else. So they were giving up that space. And so then vice president knew that, told the president gets off the phone with him like, hey, Hanna, I didn't do any work, but I know of a space that's available. So I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to do this then. So then I rent the space, continue with the incubator, kind of started with the thought that I would be probably 85%. I was really into the businesses where they give money back to like causes. So like Tom's or Shop Forward, there's a bunch of them. So I'm like, I'll just source products from those and we'll call this company not rurally, because that's a terrible name. We'll call it Upgift. So, and then 25% of it will be these small business owners that are in our community. And even though they don't give back in that same way, by shopping with them, you'll be giving back to our community. So Upgift, look at us. We're going to do this. So then I start testing concept of Upgift, like just in A/B testing on Facebook, because I had launched enough terrible businesses at this point to know that I should probably test for free before I really go all in on something. So start A and B testing. The kind of social good company just didn't pick up at all. Nobody's responding to it. Nobody's liking it. Nobody cares. Nothing. Just fell completely flat. But the 25% that was like, when you shop here, you support, local businesses, and we source products only from local businesses in your community. Those ones started skyrocketing. So then I'm like, well, okay, there's something here. And I do care about this a lot, because I had struggled so much getting anyone to adopt any of my ideas, even though they were bad and they shouldn't have been. But, I felt like if I'm doing anything, at least the people outside my door should know about it. And if they think that it's good, then maybe that would give you enough confidence to kind of take it beyond your community. And isn't that the coolest part of living in a small community? You can launch these small, quaint, special things. And so eventually Upgift became local, and local shifted from this like socially good give back thing to essentially a incubator gift shop. So yeah, that was September it was August, because someone told me that I couldn't open it, that I would not be able to open in August. We had way too much to do on our building. And I was like, no, we're going to open in August. So August 31st, we opened.
August 31st of
2022.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I don't know. We opened and people responded so much. I had, I think, 3 businesses. I had 6, but 2 of them were technically mine. And one of them was my stepdad. So really just 3 people that I didn't know that had their stuff in there. And within the first week, like the whole store had basically been cleared out. And yeah, we just start sourcing and getting to know more people, and more people are bringing me their products. And
what kind of stuff was it at first?
Mostly, so I designed, so that was another part of the testing. After we figured out that people liked local products, I needed to test if people cared enough about their rural communities. So we started doing local love shirts, and we did those at like town festivals, where we just made shirts that said like LaPorte City, Iowa, Dysart, Iowa. Not just that, but we did like 3 designs. And those sold out at every single fair. So then I was like, okay, people like their rural communities. They like this idea. So we had those shirts. We had kind of shirts and stickers related to the community that we were in. And then someone was doing like wood burning, pretty typical craft store stuff, keychains, wallet things. And then more t-shirts. At that point, I had published my first book, so my book was in there. And then charcuterie boards, because my stepdad just happens to be a woodworker. So charcuterie boards, and my husband had a hunting and fishing kind of brand company, so his shirts were in there. And that was pretty much it. And nope, I didn't. Yes, I had an artist, and I had a graffiti artist who lived in Denver that just was like, whoa, this is the coolest thing ever. I've never been able to sell my products here. And anyways, so that was it. Just a bunch of kind of Mod Podged gift-ish items, whatever I could fill the store with. Like, we just had to get really good at spreading things out.
Because how big was the store at the time?
So super small, very small space, very intentionally small. But we had shelves on one side, I would say probably half of this room.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe 400 square feet?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. Total with my office is probably 800.
Okay.
So tiny. And so we had shelves on one side and then a clothing rack. And then the back wall is just pegboard. And we just spread everything out.
Make it look full.
Make it look full, make it feel very special, very cool, but it was not. There was nothing in the center of the floor because we wouldn't have been able to fill it if there was. It was just the back wall, the shelves, and the clothing rack. Yeah.
And most of your customers, like your first customers through the door in August or September of 22, were they local to Denver? Or like were you having people coming up from Cedar Falls, Waterloo, Waverly, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so a lot of local to Denver. Denver was very excited. We did a mural on one side, and after our muralist had just primed, people were stopping by like, oh my gosh, thank you for doing that. It was just this white, weird blob. And people were like,
It's so beautiful.
it's so bright. It's so lovely to have something. We so appreciate you doing this for our community. But it was just this weird white blob. And so, I think our community and all rural communities, I truly believe, are excited to have anything. Like we've gotten so used to not getting spoiled in this way, to having to leave to experience something like that. So really our community showed up right away. I got to know so many people. I didn't know anyone before. And my daughter just the other day was like, Mom, you're famous. Because now we know everybody. We're working with our community every single day. I mean, yeah, we're doing the things. But it was mostly our community. And then I think I got sort of lucky just launching the idea and it catching on. And the way that we did the pop-ups, I think created a lot of excitement for our brand. So social media took us a long way too. So we did end up pulling a lot of Waterloo, Cedar Falls people.
So when you say pop-ups, like what did you do? Were you essentially taking the store, quote unquote, somewhere else?
I would just take shirts. So just shirts that I designed because I got that graphic design degree. So I'm like, I'm going to use this. I'm going to design some shirts. So I would design 3 shirts for their community, pop up with the 3 shirts, and that kind of spread this idea of like, let's invest in our rural communities. Let's get excited. Because to me, it's like, well, I'll wear a Wisconsin Dells shirt, but I'm never going to wear a Denver, Iowa shirt. That'd be weird. But why? Like, why are we marketing for these tourist attractions when we could be marketing for ourselves? And what a great opportunity. So yeah, well, after those sold out, that really got the ball rolling and kept this idea of like, no, people love their rural communities. They really do. They just don't have the same opportunity to love them publicly like other places. So yeah, we weren't taking the whole shop because at that point we were consignment and I felt weird because I break just a ton of stuff. When you're doing pop-ups,
yeah, it's
you're
hard.
outside.
There's a lot, yes.
So I never felt comfortable taking their product outside of the shop because I didn't own it at that point. So I just did t-shirts to kind of spread the word about what we were trying to do.
And so that would have been early 23?
That would have been early 22. So June, July, and August before we opened the shop.
Okay, you started doing that.
Yep, t-shirt pop-ups.
Okay, so you get open. The response is pretty positive.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
When did you start then? Because you've expanded this into not just a gift shop anymore. Like it's, like you said, it's a movement at this point.
Right.
You've added things on. So talk me through that of where it went after just local gift shop.
Okay. So about 2 weeks after the excitement of opening, like no one's coming into the store. No one at all. And I'm like, well, we did so good. We're this new thing. Come on, everybody come here. And we had a pretty good social media following at that point. So I'm like, what do we do now? So kind of limped through the rest of September, really trying to figure out how do I even do inventory? I mean, we started just writing prices down on garage sale tags and posting them to stuff. And then it would probably take me, because I'd have to report back to the people who gave me their products how much they sold. And then at that point, I was doing it all handwritten. So it would take me about 3 days to do reports. And I was reporting every month. So it was just a ton. So that's mostly what I was doing, but I'm realizing these people aren't going to keep selling here. Nothing's selling. No one's doing anything. What are we going to do? So I'm like, okay, what do other small towns do? So I kind of have a conversation with our chamber because I'm still on the board at that point. And I'm like, guys, we're not doing anything for these businesses. We need to do something. Like, I can't keep my doors open. People don't understand that this is here. And I don't know how to kind of force the issue. Like, Facebook isn't doing it. I think we need to put it right in their face. That's what we're going to have to do. So I'm like, let's do a fall festival. We had been talking about doing a fall festival for a while, and everybody on the board was just kind of like, because if your livelihood's not dependent on it, it is a lot of work.
Right.
And so...
Well, and you are wanting this fall festival. You are in September right now when you're starting this conversation.
Yeah.
And
so
you're
I'm like,
I want this fall festival.
We need it by
2
October,
weeks.
by the way, because I'm going to have to close my business if I don't keep these people happy.
That's fine.
So I get it. I get why they passed. But I was like, but I can't pass. So I decide that I'm going to do my own fall festival. Fine. Local's going to throw a fall festival. So I kind of knew some business owners. I just start calling them. Hey, the lady that groomed our dog, she had a mobile grooming salon. I'm like, do you want to do a pet costume contest? You can judge it. Cool. Yep, she'll do that. All right, we got a pet costume contest. How fun is that? Perfect. My mom used to be an art teacher. I'm like, can you paint faces? Can you paint faces at this festival? Yep, she can figure that out. Okay. My stepdad owns a hay rack mound, so he's going to do hay rack rides. Okay, perfect. We got hay rack rides. And then kind of just started putting out this idea. This is what we're going to do. We'll have the pet costume contest. I talked to the local restaurant owner, and I'm like, do you guys want to judge a kids' Halloween costume contest? Maybe that'll be fun. Okay, we'll do that. Yep, we'll do that. I don't know how we're going to do that, but perfect. Just kind of keep grabbing people and then start talking about it. So then people start coming like, I want to do something at this fall festival. I want to do something at this fall festival. Okay. Kind of grab those people, do all that. Luckily I just collect, interesting chairs. So I happen to have enough chairs in my garage to like chair this whole festival.
No rental fees.
So it didn't cost anything. And that was really important because I was barely surviving as it was. And so I'm like, okay, great. We got all these things. Then we'll have people come in and enter a drawing for, I don't know, I don't even remember what the drawing was, but they'll come into the shop to do their entry, and that'll get people coming through here. And so we pull off the first fall festival, and people come in, and that day in October saved my business. I mean, we were so busy. We had so many people come through the door, so many people that didn't realize that we were there. And then I was like, okay, we're doing this. We did this. We survived that. It all got easier after that because then it's just November and December and people are shopping very naturally. So it wasn't a problem. People knew about us by that point, that they were kind of making us a destination. So shortly after the fall festival, I get kind of tapped on the shoulder by a couple of business owners that are like, hey, we need more things like that. And I'm like, well,
and you're talking local business, like within Denver.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Yep. So our ice cream shop owner, our restaurant owner, they own 2 restaurants in town. Our coffee shop owner, they're kind of like, hey, we need to do that consistently. Are you going to be the person that wants to do it? And I'm like, no.
Do you volunteer?
It's not me. It's not me. It's not going to be me.
Did you say, but it could be us?
Well, I said it could be the chamber. That really should be the chamber. So I go back to the chamber and I'm like, here's the results of that event. Like this made my business continue. So I can't even stress to all of you how important. And I know that it's a heavy lift, but gosh, we got to do stuff like this for our businesses. You don't know how much they're struggling because the rural tendency is just to leave. We don't ever do anything cool here. I'll leave. There's nothing good here. I'll leave. I got to go to get groceries. I'm going to leave. I might as well do everything while I'm in town. And we got to somehow shift that rural behavior to leave. I know all about it because I lived in a family that, yep, let's go to town. We don't get anything in our small town. So the chamber was kind of like, yeah, I don't know, kind of hee-hawing around. And I'm like, this has to be our role. So they kind of decide that's not the direction. That's not what they're focused on, which is perfectly fine. All organizations get to decide what they're focused on. And I'm like, if that's not your focus, it has to be someone's. So then I think my heat had gone out in my brick and mortar business for 6 weeks in the middle of January. Oh. Yeah. And I still have to work every day in that space. And nothing makes me angrier than having my feet cold. And they had been cold for 6 weeks. So I'm like writing. I remember Ashley Hinson had come to our small town and she had toured our space. And I'm like, okay, well, I kind of know someone in local government or higher up government. I'm going to write her a letter about what the real problems facing Iowa are. Like, you don't get what building in rural Iowa is like. I haven't had heat for 6 weeks, and it's not that the business owners don't want to do it. It's right, kind of this holding pattern of if a business owner can't buy a building, then they can't really improve it. And so they're just kind of stuck with however far the landlord wants to take that space. And in rural communities, it's a funny thing that happens. Like, people who own it are either sometimes waiting for it to come back around. Like, okay, I'll just keep holding and holding until someone turns this thing around. And then just never letting go. Like, you don't have any interest in making the building better, but you're just going to hold on to the real estate and not provide opportunities that are great for residents or people who are renting that space. So I write my whole letter. I'm like, I'm sending it. I'm sending this. She's going to know all the problems and she's going to read this because I'm mad and she knows it. And it wasn't going to help anything. So one of my close friends who had been tapping on me to like, just start your own thing. What are you doing? He says, hey, I mean, you can send that, but that's not solving anything. Do you want to be a part of the solution? I'm like, no, I just want to be mad.
I'm cold. Do you not understand that I'm cold?
My feet are cold. This isn't going to solve anything, but it made me warm for a second, just with pure anger and rage. So it felt great. So I end up not sending the letter. And then I decide, all right, if I'm going to actually do this, what is this going to be? So I start gathering these business owners who are kind of pushing me like, hey, if anybody's going to turn this thing around, it's going to be you, and you're going to have to do this. And so we go back and forth. Do we formalize? Do we just we met with a couple of other small communities that had turned their selves around and used some of what they were doing and just decided like, okay, we're going to formalize. And then I'm like, okay, this is how I'll do that. So we launched Local Foundation, which then launched our first chapter, which is Destination Denver, Iowa. So Destination Denver is a nonprofit, and they're focused on just making our community even better. So we already know we have a great community, but we're kind of a three-legged stool, and one of the stool legs is missing. And the stool that's missing, the leg that's missing in Denver is our downtown. I mean, the whole town, our schools are top in the state, it's the cleanest little city in Iowa, if I had to
give it a name, a little tagline.
It's very clean. It's a very great place to live. It really is. But our downtown just doesn't match the rest of it. So if we're going to turn that around, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to start gathering people that care about this. And so start gathering business owners. That was April of 23. We have our first kind of kickoff meeting. I just go around town and shake hands with every person and hand them a physical invite. Like, hey, come to this meeting. We want to learn how to make Denver even better. Like, just come to this meeting. We just want ideas. And so we had a great turnout. I mean, it's not going to sound impressive to anybody that's not from a rural community, but we probably had 50 people, which
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I felt great about it. And so people bought in, they were excited. We did like a whole visioning thing. I don't know. It was really just something that I dreamt up, and people seemed excited. So we kind of just kept going and making events, kind of shoestringing stuff together. It was so much easier. I know we went back and forth for a while. Does Hanna just drive this? And do I just keep it myself? Or do I formalize and add people? Because having a board, having meeting minutes, having a treasurer, like, all sounds like the worst idea ever. But with building my business, like, I couldn't take the weight of the entire community on myself. And so adding the board and the formalizing of it, I think, really helped. So by October, I end up filing for our nonprofit status and getting all of that approved. And I remember we used to have card tables that I would set up in my shop. I'd have to move everything to the side, and we'd have card tables set up in my shop, and everybody would just have to like get as skinny as they possibly could to sit at this table, because my shop is extremely small, but we didn't have a meeting space. So I remember sitting at that card table and being like, hey, I know we're all kind of scared to formalize because it seems fancier than what we are, but this is what we don't want. We don't want someone to get a hold of this idea by the end of the year and be like, hey, I got money I need to get rid of. Can I give it to you? And us not be in a position to accept that. So everybody's like, okay. I mean, it seems like we don't need to do it, but all right, Hanna, whatever you think, fine. So then we do another fall festival. So this is October of that year, shortly after we get nonprofit status. We do another fall festival. A community member comes to the fall festival and they're like, hey, we think what you're doing is amazing, and we want to give you $10,000. If your status right, we'd love to give you that gift to keep doing what you're doing. So I'm like, whoa. Oh, okay. Well, we'll take it. We are. So I went to the next board meeting and I'm like, doing my treasurer's report. We got this much money. We got $200 from just donations for the event. We got $100 from t-shirt fundraising. And so that leaves our account at $10,500. And they're like, I think, but you did the math wrong. Like,
it's not how you get to 10,000.
Hanna, you did the math wrong. I'm like, oh,
by the way,
I'm so sorry. We had a donor come in and want to give us a gift of $10,000. And everybody's just like almost crying because we're a female-led board. So 100% female-led and owned. I don't know that was on purpose, but that's just how it all ended up shaking out. So we're all like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with $10,000? This is wild. This is so crazy. We just figured we'd be figuring this out from now until forever. And we were all perfectly fine with that. I mean, at that fall festival, everybody was like, okay, the orchard owner, Abby, you're going to cover the porta potties. All right, Hanna, you're going to cover the live music. All right, Sarah, you own the ice cream shop. You're going to cover the magician fees. Like, we all just kind of divvied up, and we were okay with that because we had a very specific vision for what we were going after. So we didn't want to start asking for money from businesses because all of us own businesses. So we were like, that just seems like the opposite of what these organizations should be doing. You should be getting money into your businesses versus always finding ways to take from them. So we sort of committed to that, and we just raised ourselves. And then obviously the generosity came back to us. And then by November of that year, that same donor community member came back and they were like, hey, we talked to our tax accountant So, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, of course I messed this up. And like,
Sorry, take your $10,000 back, please.
I wrote a book. I have a podcast. So in my head, right in that moment, as he's like, hey, we talked to our tax person, like, I'm going, oh, shit, what did I say 2 days ago on my podcast? Like, did he find it? Did he read my book? And he thinks I'm a super weird person. Like, what did I do? Then he's like, we need to actually increase the amount. So then I'm like, okay, I didn't screw this up yet. Okay, what are we talking here? And he's like, we need to add $90,000 to that.
Holy moly.
And I'm like, what is everyone going to say to that? Like, we were over the moon for 10,000, and then, an unrestricted gift of 100,000. And he's really like, we believe in what you're doing. We want to see this community grow, and we think you're the group that's going to do it. And we want to see you do that to your fullest vision of what that looks like. And so we want to give you this so you can just do it. And you don't have to think about it. And so, yeah, that was the end of 23, and now it's 24. So we're continuing to do that. We just applied for a visioning community. So hopefully we'll be one of those, because one of the bigger problems with Denver is like, we always have money for the projects. We can get money for projects, but we keep doing these one-off little projects that end up limiting the lifetime of whatever park we made that improvement on. So we were kind of pushing the community to pull back and let's get a bigger vision for what this community is going to look like before we even start improving the downtown. What else could kind of funnel into improvements? So hopefully we'll get selected as one of the 4 Iowa communities. And then I think that'll set us up to do all the work that we want to do. And yeah, so that was wild. But that all just kind of, I feel like everything that I've done so far came from the gift shop and just kind of putting myself out. Like, I want to help businesses thrive in rural communities, because I really believe there are more than less people like me who have great ideas, who have a passion and excitement for whatever they're working on, that just we just as Iowans don't believe in Iowans very well. Or like, we're not used to it. I'm not sure exactly what it is. But there's always this kind of shock that people come back to the shop with, like, yeah, I got that candle. I can't believe that was the best candle I've ever had. Like, it's not that crazy, because the candles we buy from Target, at some point were made in Vermont, so like, why couldn't a candle that's amazing just be made in Denver, Iowa, the same as it's made in Vermont? I mean, it's not that wild. So I just always wanted to help make it better. After my experience with my book, it was like, well, that's great. I was getting on podcasts in like India and Canada, and Canadians are super nice, so it was awesome. But like, I wrote this book for Iowans, for people who had experienced things like I had, and nobody in my community of 1900 knew that I wrote a book. So why? Why is this so hard? And can we make that better? Can we lend some credibility to the businesses that are in our shop, to the businesses that are in our town? So that's really, Destination Denver is like the mouthpiece of Denver at this point, or will be. That's the vision of it. Like, lend credibility to our entire community as a space to travel to. And then now we have the publishing company, because it's the same concept. Like, people have got to be writing books here. What are we doing? Why aren't they getting published? Well, probably because there aren't publishers just hanging out at our coffee shops in rural Iowa. So we want to just, everywhere that we go, help. And I say we, it's just me for the most part, other than my board who helps with all Destination Denver. But like, I don't want anyone sitting in rural Iowa going, I can't, because of where I live. So if we can create more opportunities that just help us lend credibility, help help lift all of us up. Maybe people will dream bigger. Maybe they'll do more here, and Iowa will become this super cool, like quaint, amazing experience where you can have it all. I think that's my bigger vision for how this all works out. That was bold.
Well, but if it's not bold, does it work? You don't strike me as, we started this conversation of it was all fine.
Right.
Like everything was fine, but it wasn't.
Right.
So if it's not bold, to me, it doesn't seem like it would be worth your time anyway.
Right. Yeah. Because, most people don't write a book, launch a business, launch a nonprofit, launch a publishing company. But I'm like, I feel like that's what has to be done. So.
Well, and if not you, who?
Right. Nobody, for all the 12 people that were like, Hanna, you have to start this thing. You have to start this thing. All perfectly capable of starting this thing themselves. Nobody did. So, and I'm sure you experienced this, like you're essentially the letter carrier of your small town. Like whether it rains, sleets, snows, whatever, like you're going to be there. You're going to be the champion. You're going to be the one that's lifting barricades and pulling off these big, huge events, no matter what. You could have the sickness of your life and you're probably still going to be there. You're going to show up. And I think that's a lot to ask, but it is kind of what's required just for somebody to own that piece of it.
Yeah. Well, and so we have a really interesting program that's like not really a formal program. It was just one of our council members is a new mom. She runs daycare like around the block. And I was at this council meeting. I don't remember why. I go to a lot of council meetings. They're right across the street.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I? And she at the end of every council meeting go around and it's council updates. So if you have anything, whatever. So she asked if it would be okay if on Monday nights, if she organized a food truck to come into town just on Monday nights so people don't have to cook, whatever. She started them in July and it's been like a smash hit. We go every Monday regardless. And, the first couple times she's like, thanks so much for showing up and everything. I said, if you want nice things, you gotta support it. I said, and I think this is a nice thing to do. I said, so even if I don't love whatever this food truck has, I want this to be successful.
Right.
Because I know what it's like being on the other side of it, putting on the event, doing the things. And so in certain situations, yes, it takes money to show up. It takes money to pay for the food truck. But there's a lot of ways that you can show up for your community and not, but you have to support it. If you want nice things, you have to support it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've been blessed that Denver is kind of a bedroom community. So I think we were just in good timing where people were like, I just realized I never leave my house. So I have people come into the shop a lot on lunch breaks, a lot on weeknights where they're like, oh, I was going to run into town, but I just don't want to run back into town, or I don't want to, I just want to be home. When I'm home, I want to be home. So it's nice to have things in town that allow you to be home and not have to leave. But yeah, people have to then remember, and that's the harder part. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. I could get that there. And I still am training myself to do that. Because I came from a small town where we left. We were trained to leave. There's nothing here. And even if there was, we couldn't afford it. So just always being like, okay, if I'm on Amazon, but could I get this from the boutique up the street? Could I get this from the grocery store right down the street? It always has to be a conversation in your mind. And I think if we were improving this, a lot more rural community members' minds to just say that. Okay, could I take an extra second? I know that that's more convenient, but do I care about my community? Do I care about it thriving and surviving? Because a lot of them just aren't anything anymore. So I think rural community members just got to champion those things. I know we get tired of eating at the same places, or we get tired of shopping at the same places, but we don't get tired of Amazon or Target, so let's just not get tired of it. Let's just try something else. Or I don't know. It's hard to stress how important it is unless you've lived the experience, like unless you've been down to like, oh my gosh, if we don't make $5 today, I don't know how I'm going to write checks tomorrow. Like, and so once you've lived that, you realize how important just that one switch. Like if someone had just bought a greeting card that day, I wouldn't have had to stress all night to figure out how to balance everything. So it matters. And people who are just starting, you get better at it. Like eventually you figure out, oh, I can't just spend everything that I made because it was Christmas and it was exciting. We were making so much money. But you know, those new business owners really don't have kind of their teeth cut in how all of that works. So it can come down to $5 to you eating a meal in town versus out of town. It really is one, you know, the one vote matters. One person supporting really matters. It makes such a huge difference. So.
Yeah. So do you feel like now with Destination Denver and, you know, getting the local name out there, do you feel like you guys are having a wider draw of people? Like, are people traveling for you now?
Yeah, I would say I'll go to other towns. We just started doing a local line in Waverly. And someone was like, yeah, there's so much going on in Denver. It's really amazing. And I'm like, is there? You know, I mean, I'm doing it. So I think, but if you really think about it, 2 years ago, so we opened September 2022, we had my business, a boutique, 2 restaurants, an ice cream shop, and a coffee shop, which is actually really good.
I was saying, that's pretty good for under 2,000.
Yes. For a rural community, that's really great. So we were doing great. We still had just a ton of open storefronts. So within the next 2 years, I just start becoming the point person, not assigned. So at that point, I wasn't Destination Denver, but like everybody just kept coming in and I'm just a sitting duck in there. And I'm like, I don't know, but I can figure it out. I don't know, but I can figure it out. So we place our dog groomer who had been a mobile salon. We placed them in the space next door to us because she's like, hey, I'm really nervous to go out of mobile, but I live in Denver. It'd be so nice to have a home here, which seems crazy, but if I could find a spot, I'd love to. So she had come in, talked to me about that dream a little bit. I'm like, I don't know what's available, but I'll figure it out. So then the landlord comes in probably a week later, like, hey, we got this space. If you hear of anyone, let us know. Connect those two, that space rented. We just get lucky and a hot yoga studio goes in across the street from us, kind of kitty corner, around the same 2 months that we opened. So that was extremely lucky. And then we just start placing more people. More people are coming into my shop and asking like, what's available? I have this dream. I want to do this. And I'm like, well, have you checked prices? Because I know people say all the time, brick and mortar's crazy. I could never do that. And I don't know where that stigma comes from. I think, honestly, just working in the startup world, I think it comes from startup, this like lean, which is important. Do not get me wrong. Lean startup and not having overhead. But rural communities don't have crazy overhead for their businesses. So people are saying, oh, this is crazy. And I'm looking at them and I'm going, I mean, check your spreadsheet. If you're already in business, you're probably not that far off. So I know with our mobile groomer, it was like going to save her a lot of money for the maintenance on her vehicle, for the maintenance on all of the trailers and things that she had to run. So usually it's not that far off, especially when you're talking about rural communities. So I think over the course of those 2 years, we end up growing brick and mortar businesses by 8. So place them. And I would say probably the only reason that we're at a standstill right now is just space, and the space being like making sense for what's going to go in there. So a lot of our spaces are really small. So starting to figure out how to work with different economic development groups and sort of become, and I think this would be the best position for rural communities to be in. We're the perfect launching place for trying something out. So that's what I'm trying to position Denver as. And all rural communities, like as long as you can get a handle on who owns what and you can get them to say, yep, I'll rent it and I'll rent it for this price and whatever, people want to build things. So then just having those conversations and walking people through, don't be scared. It's okay. We can do brick and mortar. We'll be okay. It's not the craziest thing you'll ever do. But I had so many people talking me out of it early on, like, you don't want to take on that overhead, some bigger mentors like, hey, it's not a good idea. You just should not. You should do anything, but you should not do this. And I will say, you have to be creative, thinking that you're only going to kind of survive on just this one thing, just the brick and mortar, probably isn't very realistic when you're first starting. But if you can structure and build something that sort of transcends and becomes bigger than what it is, we turned local into somewhat of a movement. But it's definitely possible. We're so much closer to it than I think people really understand. And I've talked to a couple of people into brick and mortar. I don't talk them into it. I just pose the idea and the question, like, run your numbers. You're not that far off. Right. I almost guarantee it.
It's more realistic than you think.
Yeah.
So when we first met at the Iowa Rural Development Summit, it was back in April, you had mentioned you got a Hello Alice grant.
Yeah.
So what did you guys, was that part of Destination Denver? Like, was that the nonprofit side or was that local?
That was just local.
Okay.
Yep. And I'm as someone who obviously podcasts every day for the last 6 years, I'm kind of a consistency person. So, for a while I was applying for at least a grant per day, just to start getting anything going. So we did get a community hero grant from Hello Alice. So that was just unrestricted $1,500. And that was great. And I needed it at that point. It was perfect timing. It helped me to kind of grow and move some different things along that I wanted to push along. But I think, the more that you're applying for that stuff, the better your chances. I've gotten denied from about a bazillion for every one that I've actually gotten. But I feel like I'm getting better at writing them. The amazing thing is a lot of them, especially if you're applying for a for-profit business, a lot of them ask the same questions.
Right. Put that in a Google Doc.
Yes. So save, spreadsheet, sometimes they'll ask for a different amount of characters and you can expand a little bit, but just the first time that you apply, save every single field. And then mostly they're asking the same things. And once you do it once, even all the financials that they ask for some of them, once you have it, you have it. And it's relatively easy. Now, it's not my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, but necessary evil in some respects.
Because there's a lot of money out there.
There is. Yeah, there's lots of opportunity. It's just you have to know where to look and then not be afraid to just freaking go for it.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be perfect. Just, submit it. Submit the first one. It's not as scary as you think, I promise.
Yep. And they don't write you back and say, this is the worst application we've ever received. You're so terrible. You shouldn't apply for grants. They don't. They just deny you. So it's not going to hurt.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it's just a form letter that you get. That they're just like, sorry, you were not fundable in this round.
Yes.
Okay.
And then you go, okay, I don't know if I didn't write a good thing. I don't know what was wrong with it. I didn't get it. Okay. Yes. And then you just keep applying.
Thanks for letting me know.
Right.
As you look forward in the next 12 months, is there something that you're particularly excited about? Like, is there a project you're particularly excited about?
For the community of Denver, the visioning, being able to land as one of those communities, I think will be huge for us to move everything that we want to do forward. From the local side of things, we're working on two children's books right now, and almost 3 books. So actually getting those, taking someone from idea to publish, I'm really excited about. Those should happen within the year. And I wasn't going to start a publishing company, just like I wasn't going to start a nonprofit, just like I wasn't going to open a gift shop. But one of my brands I kind of always push them, the people who sell in my shop, like, what's your end goal? What do you want to do with your business? Where do you want to be? Because most of them don't have that conversation with themselves. So I have it with them. And one of them had said, well, I enjoy what I'm doing, but I don't love it. If I could really do anything, I'd want to write. So I'm like, okay, what's going to get you to write? Well, I don't, if I was a published author, and I'm like, okay, we can start a publishing company. I mean, is that going to get you to write? Is that going to be the thing? And yes, it did. She wrote, she did some things. She's writing now, and working on her first book. But I think it's just like having someone that's going to go along the ride with you, you can say the crazy things too, and they go, oh, that's not so wild. We could figure that out. I'll help you figure that out. So these books, dreams and businesses and books and all the things that we create are just dreams, right? And so watching people look at something that they thought was impossible and tell them, you're going to be a published author, you're going to have your book in your hand by the end of this year. I think I'm really excited for that. And then just continuing to see local move and help people just do the things that they want to do and be able to try it in a safe enough way that they're not overwhelmed by it. They kind of have a way to increase slowly and doably, because a lot of them work full time and have their little side businesses. So local really encourages that slow, steady growth in, welcoming you to people, and you don't have to go to craft shows every single weekend and burn yourself out. It really is a passive marketplace for you where you can just drop your product at the door, and we do marketing and merchandising for you. So just seeing us touch more brands and grow with people and inevitably grow the state of Iowa, which I know, like, we're coming from a community of 1,900, so it's going to be a slow, steady gain. But I just see too many people stopping because they don't know what comes next. So being able to help people understand what needs to come next, or even helping just facilitate that conversation, I think is just everything. It's so exciting. It's exciting. I love watching people dream and then dream a little bit bigger than they did before, because they've been impacted by the shop or the movement somehow. So yeah.
That's awesome. I love it.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, I love it. What is the name of your book?
So the name of my book is The Death of a Dream, and it really started exactly where I started, recovering from the fact that the dream that I set up for my life was to be a Division I athlete, leave the state of Iowa, make it big. That was so hard pressed into my rural upbringing that was the only way to escape this small existence. That was the only path out. That was the only stories that were told. Like, you heard about the kid that made it in football 20 years ago and the kid that made it in basketball 100 years before that. But you didn't hear about the local bakery owner or the grocery store owner in town. You only heard about these people who made it big. And so that was what I was shooting for. And when I came up short, I was like, oh, so this is how adulting works. Like, dreams die and we're just supposed to get over them and suck it up. And now you just have kids and project your unlived dreams onto them. And we just keep... No, we shouldn't say that.
Ancestry. It all comes back to ancestry.
Inevitably. But really just keep continuing that same process. All right, then my kids are probably not ever going to leave their small town. And but then I was like, okay, the real pain point is that your dream died. So let's start grieving the loss of that and the loss of that life that I had fully lived in my head. That was life going right for me. That was like the A plan. And when plan A didn't happen, I was like, okay, I guess plan B. And so I was living out plan B, but I'm a plan A person, So had to recover from that first, talk about a lot of that in the book, just the recovery process and being real with that conversation. Didn't know what passion was going to look like without being able to be a passionate person on the court. And so that's out. That actually used to be the title of my podcast. It has recently switched
To now.
So it was the Death of a Dream podcast because that's where we started. But as of probably 2 months ago, I was like, we're really living the dream, started very much in this place of like, this sucks. I don't want to be in Iowa. I don't know if dreams can happen in Iowa. And now, like, I'm living it. This is it. This is what I was looking for. So now it's Living the Dream Iowa Life podcast. And you should be a guest on my show.
Perfect.
Now I get to do interviews because it's not weird. Because I'll be like, you want to be on my podcast called The Death of a Dream? And they're like, no, that sounds weird.
That's hilarious. Okay, and you can find that on Spotify, Apple, all of the podcatchers, I assume.
Yep.
Very good. If people want to learn more about local, if they want to learn more about Destination Denver, all of that stuff, like, where should they go?
Everything is pretty much titled what it is. So local is just local. I think it's local shop space, but only because local is taken, which makes sense.
Yeah.
It would be. Duh. So, but yeah, local mostly everywhere. Local shop space everywhere. Instagram, Facebook. Destination Denver is Destination Denver IA. Because otherwise you'll go to Colorado and it'll be weird. And
We're going a mile wide, not a mile high.
Right. We are not about that life. We're not going up. We're going out. And then all of my stuff is just under my name, Hanna Nuss. So pretty easy. But the internet's a wild world. So
Yes, it is. Wild world. Anyways, is there anything else that you would like to leave the people with?
There's so much possibility in rural communities, more than I think we've given them credit for. And I think you have the right people like you, people like the people in Denver that want to see the community come back, that are fighting for the next generation of kids. Like, I want to leave a community that my kids feel excited about bringing their friends back to when they're in college 10 years from now. Like, I want them to come home and have memories here. And the only way to do that is for the people there to be creating that experience. So there are people, you can find your people. I thought there would not be, and there are so many people that aligned with what I wanted to do that I was amazed. So just try, dream big and try hard.
That's right. Just go for it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.